All righty. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to chat with Ron Taylor today, a consultant with IFPG, who's ultimately an expert in franchise consulting and getting you the right franchise. And we're going to dive into some questions together. So thank you so much, Ron, for being here with me today.
Amanda, thank you for inviting me. My pleasure.
So to dive right into things, can you tell me a little bit about your background and what inspired you to be a franchise consultant?
Sure. Sure. Well, many years ago, before you were born, I carried this bass guitar around with me. I was part of a band, traveled all over the US and Canada, and we did that for about 5 years. And my wife said, Ron, I want to start a family. I'm not sure if the road is the place to do it. So I got into franchising, and man, that's all I've really done most of my life is franchising. I've been in it now. You can add all this up, but I've been in about 43 years. And for most of that, I was with one company. I was with a company for 28 years. And then what happens to a lot of people is you think you're fireproof. And on my 28th anniversary, I got that call that most people don't want to hear. That said I was being downsized. And those things happen. But it shook me to my core. How could this happen? And I put on my earbuds. I went out on my trail and started walking. And the very first song that came in my ears was a song called Waymaker. And so I named my business Waymaker Franchise Group because I help people to make a way, hopefully, from out of the corporate world or whatever job they're in to being their own boss, which isn't that what everybody wants to do, is be their own boss. And so that's what I've done. And it's been the greatest decision. My commute used to be 45 minutes to work. Now my commute is from my third floor to my first floor.
Well, that's not too far of a commute then, right?
No, not bad at all.
43 years in business. That's incredible.
I love
Absolutely
it.
incredible. And you work with a variety of different clients in finding the right franchise fit. So when it
Yeah.
comes to working with candidates and clients, however you want to call them, how do you
Mhm.
go about understanding someone's goal or their skills or maybe even their financial need in order to place them with the right franchise?
Yeah, yeah, great question. I think that it's beginning to let them tell their story. I mean, there's so much we can get from LinkedIn, there's so much we can get from resumes or whatever we get. But for me, it's just opening up and saying, tell me about yourself. Start way back to where when you were in college. What are some of the jobs you had growing up? And what do you love to do? And what do you not like to do? And if you could wave that magic wand in the morning and do anything you've ever wanted to do in your life, what would it be? And so it's just helping to get to know their goals. What do they really want to do in life? Financially, yes, I need to know how much money they want to make, and not so much how much they want to make. What have they been accustomed to before? Because no one wants to go backwards. So it's finding all of those things out. It's helping, since we don't do job interviews, we can ask ages. So I know if someone gets to be that age close to 50, that people only want to pay them half of what they're worth. They want someone half their age at half their pay. So it's helping them to understand that and knowing that the only way they're really going to control their destiny, if they want to make their employment permanent, is to get involved in their own business. And then it's up to me to help them, to be their personal research assistant, to guide them into that.
Oh, that's awesome. And you work with a ton of different brands and franchise brands all over the map, from home services to B2B to everything in between. And so,
Yeah.
how are you evaluating franchise brands before you're recommending them to a client? And what
Yeah. Yeah.
criteria is the most important for you?
Yeah. So as you know, Amanda, everything we do in franchising is regulated by the Federal Trade Commission. So they have oversight of everything that's done. Just like when I buy stock, I get a prospectus on that company that tells me about it. We get the same thing from franchise companies. So this is one of the things that I do with my clients. I help them to know that if they went to buy a franchise on their own or they go through me, it's going to cost them the exact same amount of money. These companies pay me to find, select, and qualify and guide these people through the process. So I'm their personal research assistant, so to speak, helping them. So I look at that FDD, and what do I look for? If they have pages of litigation, oh, that's it. It's over. I mean, everyone has one or two because we're in a suit happy world. But I look at that. I look at what's called the item 7. How much does it really cost to get into the business? Item 19, which everybody wants to know, is how much money can I make if I do this? By law, as a consultant, I'm not allowed to tell them how much money they make. but the home office can tell them. So I want to know that. And then a real key I want to know is, what is their turnover rate? How many people start in that franchise, and then how many leave? And then, Amanda, one of the things I always look at is, who is the franchise director that I'm going to be working with in that company? Have they been there 5 days? Have they been there 5 years? Because if they've been there 5 or 10 years, they have ownership in that business. And I probably know them since I was with the same company 28 years. So those are just some things I look for. So when people go to work with me, and I always say that because we're partners when we're looking for a business for someone. I think they understand that I'm going to be there, and I love that term, personal research assistant. I'm helping to guide them through the process, through that gauntlet of trying to get from where they are today to where they want to be in the future.
And I mean, it's incredible that you can help on that level too, because there's thousands of different brands. And to have someone as an expert like yourself to be able to guide them through it, you're cutting out so much time away from them, which is great, so that they can focus on the true options that are in front of them instead of
Well,
having to weed through 1,000 of
yeah.
them and try to figure out which are the top 5 that I want to go after, type of thing,
Well,
right?
and here's the real secret to that, Amanda. I tell people, look, I have 550 businesses at my disposal. There's about 35 that I love. I tell them this: if I wouldn't have my children or my grandchildren get involved in that franchise, I'm not showing it to you. So there has to be some trust involved.
Mm.
They're putting their life so much in my hands to guide them through the process. So I've got to make sure and show them something that has a limited risk. Now, we know that if someone starts a business on their own without a franchise, the risk is very high. I think like over 70% of people fail in their first 5 years. Whereas if they purchase a franchise, about 8% don't make it. So I like those odds. Then it just comes down to, am I going to put the behaviors in? Am I going to do the work that's involved to make that business work? And if so, yeah, you should be in good shape.
Oh, that's awesome. So now let's go into a little bit of a story time with some of your clients that you've worked with. So walk me through an example of maybe a challenging client that you had, and how did you work through finding them a good placement?
Okay. Okay. All right. I have one that comes to mind. I had I think it's all right to use this name. I had a vice president for Coca-Cola International who I spoke to, and he wanted to do something semi-passive. So he said, I don't want to go in there every day, but I want something maybe that I don't make money today, but I could make money long-term, maybe even a legacy business, which of course a lot of people want. They want something they can pass down to their children. And so we went through all different types of areas for him, and we ended up putting him in a high-end men's hair salon. Now, I would have never thought of that, but we started looking at it, and he looked through the numbers and said, I absolutely love it. So they're building his hair salon now. He's excited. But to look at it, you'd say, what am I going to show someone who makes a large amount of money, who's been a vice president of a major company, and now they decided they want to buy their own franchise? So those are times when we have to put our ears on, not do so much talking, do a lot of listening, right? 70% listening, 30% talking. And if you do that, you're going to hear things that will help. And that's what I try to do with my clients, is not talk so much, but let them tell me, what do they want to do? If they had that magic wand again that they could wave in the morning and do anything they've ever wanted to do. I had a gentleman that said, you know what? My dad told me the most excited he ever was is when he did home inspections. You probably don't have a home inspection business, do you? Well, yeah, I do. So it's a matter of listening, man. If you listen, people will tell you what they want. And
Yeah,
then it's a matter of us saying, no matter what I get paid for this, you're my client. You're the
yeah,
one that I want calling me in 2 years and say, you changed my life.
yeah,
And if you do that,
absolutely.
everything else falls into place.
Oh, completely. It's like one of those quotes that I heard early on in my career, that you need to listen to understand rather than to
Yes.
listen to just have a response. And
Yes.
your business is exactly like that, because while you're understanding everything that he's looking for, it allows you to put him in front of the right people for the right business for him, which is super impactful. So
Yeah.
you work with a ton of different clients, of course, too, from varying backgrounds, not necessarily just career based backgrounds, but probably also financial based backgrounds as well. How do you tailor your approach to varying clients?
Um, I was trained with a great company that taught me how to qualify, close, and present. And part of qualifying is knowing right up front, can someone qualify for what I'm going to do? And so I'm very open. And I think it's one of the things I hear from my clients is they love the fact that I'm very open with them. And sometimes I tell my people, I just don't think financially you're ready to start your own business right now. But there's so many ways you can do it. You can put your own money in. There's home equity loans. There's SBA funding. Of course, there's a great 401k program that you can use where you don't pay taxes or penalties. So there's a lot of ways to do it. But even with that being said, here's the minimum amount of money you're going to put into this business. Here's the maximum. And even if you do SBA and you put maybe 20% down, you still have a certain amount. So I'm letting them know up front, Amanda, here's what you're going to be looking at financially. And if I find you the perfect opportunity that's going to satisfy all your needs, am I within your investment range? And I just do that. And then sometimes I'll even say, look, if you're going to start a business, you should have 6 to 9 months of living expenses set aside, or have a spouse that's working, bringing in money, because the last thing you want to do is start a business and then run out of money, right? Mm-hmm. So I find all that out up front, and it's just amazing that most people say, well, you know what? I might not be able to do X amount, but I could do this amount. Do you have anything you could show me? Yeah, I do. Oh, so it's a matter of listening again. But I think we find out up front if someone, and look, I hate to tell people no, but I do that from time to time. I say, you know, at this point, I just don't quite think you're ready to start your own business, but can I call you back in a year? Right. And that's how it works out. And there's people, look, I have a gentleman in Serbia, the most amazing guy in the world. When I met with him in Baltimore, he didn't start his business until 5 years after that, because he wanted to put the right amount of money that we told him he needed. And now I've been seeing him all over Facebook. He's the number one salesperson in Serbia. So you just never know what's going to happen, but you've got to listen and make sure that you're not trying to push a business on someone. That's the thing that'll hurt you the most, is when you try to push instead of letting them come to you.
I mean, and you kind of answered my next question already, is telling me about a success story that you have with one of your clients that you placed. And I mean, that one maybe took a little bit of time, but he's reaping the rewards from it. I bet he's jumping for joy at that opportunity too.
Yeah, he just texted me last week, said, I'm going to be in the U.S. in November. You know, can we have lunch? I'll just give you another one. I just got an email, literally got it at 2:19. Hi, Ron. I just wanted you to know I'm doing great in my business. Things have gotten off very quickly. I have a full plate of regular clients. They're growing rapidly. Things have slid into place, and I'm happy. And he said, the last line is the most important to me. Isn't that amazing? That's what you want to hear. You want people to say, yeah, I'm making money, but the real key is, are you happy? There's a lot of things we can do where we can make money. But if you hate what you're doing, if you hate getting up every morning, going to a job just for the paycheck, there's other ways to do it. And maybe it's starting your own business.
Yeah, certainly is. That's for sure. So I've got one last question for you today, Ron. Sure. What do you believe are some of the misconceptions that clients have about franchising?
Well, I think one of the biggest misconceptions is, first of all, that it's very risky, and some are. But second, they automatically say, oh, then you're talking about Chick-fil-A and McDonald's and Dunkin', and those are great franchises, but that's not what the average person goes into. So I think it's the idea of saying, I tell people, look, if you go down your city street and look on the left and look on the right, 80% of what you're going to see is a franchise. Somebody had an idea, it worked for them in their area, and they said, it works so good for me, I think we can do this all over the US and all over Canada, and who knows, maybe other countries. So I think people are shocked when I go through, I have about 24 categories that I go through with my clients, and they're shocked. I didn't know you could franchise that. That's a great idea. I say, well, somebody else thought it was a great idea, and that's why they started it. My son and my son-in-law run a $4.5 million painting business here in Maryland. And people say, well, how do I do that? Well, you franchise. There's all types of different franchises. Or if someone says, hey, I've got a great financial background and I love to sell, you know what I'm going to think of? Things like Schooley Mitchell. Those are the types of businesses. You've got to have a business in mind when you're talking to your clients, and they will help you and guide you through that. But it's listening skills. I think that's the real key. And I just love to see people be their own boss, A lot of people never thought they could be their own boss because their parents didn't do it, their friends didn't do it. How can I do it? You can do it. You've just got to have someone that'll guide you through the process and help you to get from where you are today to where you want to be tomorrow. And you never know how it may end up.
Oh, that's awesome, Ron. And thank you so much for taking the time with me today and for me to get to know you a little bit more and ask you some of these questions. It's a great
Okay.
partnership that we do have. And just thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Amanda. Just a pleasure to be able to talk to you today. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome.